Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Cronin. Season 15 of the Toss-Up continues right now. We're going to bump it up and talk some Hoosier volleyball today, so you know what to do. Buckle it up. We got a great show coming up on the Toss-Up. Coming off one of the best seasons in the Steve Aird era, the Indiana Volleyball team finds themselves 6-3 on the young season with another road test coming up at the 305 Challenge in Coral Gables, Florida. Joining myself to dissect the team with some higher expectations is none other than IUSTV sports reporter and recent watermelon enthusiast Kenzie Rehklau, and of course, two members of the Hoosier Neck volleyball crew, Griffin Healy and Ari Betterly. Thank you all for joining me here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this volleyball team last season, they went 16-16, 9-11 in the Big Ten, and that was really a lot of improvements from the past couple of years. Knocked off Ohio State, had some tough games against Purdue. Kennedy, I'll go to you first. Through these first couple non-conference invitationals, what have you seen from this team? What has stood out?
Honestly, for me, I think that first touch on the ball, so when we come to serving, we've been seeing a lot of aces. They're actually leading the Big Ten right now for aces on the season. I believe it's 61. So we're starting off very strong. They're starting off with an aggressive attack that can set the team off to maybe a free ball back over the net and then, work with it and get that point down.
Griffin?
Yeah, I think another thing that they've worked on, too, is the defense. The back row looks a lot better, and they seem to be more cohesive than last season, especially with the depth that they have, which we can get into later. And I think something noticeable on that defensive end is that this team is able to pick up some digs. I think that's something very noticeable from last year compared to this year.
I mean, considering the fact that it's a freshman leading the charge with Ramsey Gary coming an All-American out of high school. She played with a handful of the members from the Munciana squad back in the prep. So, Ari, what do you think about the season so far?
Honestly, I think with 12 returning members to the team, I think it's going to be an essential group that honestly, taking the upperclassmen and having them lead the younger freshmen and newcomers and transfers will be really important this season.
That was something that Coach Aird said, is that he feels like there's just there's depth to this team as compared to other teams that he's had moving forward. Talking player specifics, Ari, I'll go right back to you. Who do you feel has stepped up the most through the first 9 matches? Obviously, another tough one down in Miami this upcoming weekend.
I mean, it's obvious to say Cameron Hayworth is an all-star in every aspect of the game. She has already had 100 aces this season, or her whole career, I mean. And also, she just is a two-time leader within her team.
Yeah, the 100 aces. She's only the 19th Hoosier to do that. And I was reading, she's on pace. If she keeps up what she's been doing, she will break the record at Indiana. Griffin, who's been stepping up the most.
Yeah, I mean, I think one person who should be noted as stepping up is Ramsey Gary. Again, like the points you just brought up, being a freshman, new to the system, but played with a lot of those players there. That's someone who is really going to be a prominent piece for the next 4. But one that we should also note is Gray Gosnell. She seems to play every position that Aird needs. Just an absolute fighter and has the energy that is needed to keep this team competitive in the last 9 matches. One
of the more hyperverbal people on this team, I think that's really important, especially she's not always starting, but the energy she brings really helps. Kennedy, what about you?
I'm going to have to say Kaylee Ramelsberg, as a fellow Ohioan. She's also from my hometown. So it's been super cool to see her transfer into Indiana, get her feet back underneath her, especially as she came off an injury last season. I think she's been a large leader on the court, as she does have a lot of experience. She's considered a veteran player. We've seen her have her 1,000th point in her career, and that is a very large step, especially for any college volleyball player, and even one within the Big Ten with how competitive this conference is. So I think having her back on the court has been crucial.
We'll absolutely get into some of the Big Ten play here towards the end of the show. But before we do that, I do want to talk about, there were those 3 losses, all came in the Long Beach Invitational. Those were 3 tough teams. I guess what hasn't been working? Griffin, I'll go to you first for this one.
Yeah, I think the thing is maybe it's nothing that the team isn't working, and I think the whole crew here would agree. There may be errors. They need to stop committing more errors, and they just need to be a little more cohesive. Like in the New Hampshire match, which is the first game of the season, there was no rhythm to it. But then after, when they played the 2 teams at the Indiana Invitational, there was rhythm, and Indiana took full control. But the 3 losses, those are not bad losses by any means. I mean, Washington had 68 receiving votes, putting them at 26th, and then UCLA followed them at 27th with 63 votes. So it just comes down to playing, I guess, lesser competition versus more higher competition. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to, less errors. That's what they really need to work on. And I'm sure every team in the nation would say the same thing. We need to commit less errors.
There'll be no shortage of higher competition, especially once the conference play starts. And just to think that, 2 teams you mentioned, there'll be Big Ten teams just next year, UCLA and Washington. Ari, what about you? What has, I guess, not been working so far for the team?
I would agree. I think Coach Aird mentioned there was a lot of jitters that first weekend coming into the not Big Ten play, but just overall play. And going into the Big Ten, I think it's important that the team fixes these jitters and these small mistakes so they can really be consistent coming into the Big Ten gameplay.
Kennedy?
Yeah, I'm going to wrap that up. I know I said that the serving's been going really well, but with unforced errors, serving is a very easy thing to miss. So keeping themselves competitive while keeping these challenging topspin serves, being aggressive with their serving is very important, but they also have been hitting some balls into the net or deep. So I think they need to keep their serves aggressive while also keeping them in the court, because they're not going to be able to win these big games against teams like Wisconsin and Nebraska if they're not getting the ball over and in.
There were 6 Big Ten teams that made the NCAA tournament last year. There are 6 Big Ten teams that are within the top 20 of the current rankings. Kennedy, I'll ask you 2 questions that will go around. 1, do you think that Indiana can take down one of the Giants? And 2, what game are you most looking forward to in Big Ten play for Indiana?
I'm going to say a Giant that I think they can take down is Ohio State. We saw them do that last year. I was at the game. It was at Ohio State, and that was a very big game for them. Also, Ohio State had lost a lot of players to grad transfers, and they have some fresh bodies in, and I just think that there's an opportunity for IU to take advantage of that this year. And a game that I'm looking forward to is Penn State. They picked up a lot of grad transfers this year, and I just think that they're always a big team, always a team to keep your eye on. So I think I'm looking forward to seeing how IU puts up a game against them.
Griffin?
Yeah, I do think that is an important to note on Ohio State losing a lot to the grad portal, but they are still a very good team, and I think that's a Giant after coming off of a top 5 road win last year. But another team that is very good, I think Indiana can compete with and beat, is Purdue. Purdue is a very good team, and not to undermine the Boilers' talent, but it's a very young team. They just had a roster turnover, but they're still very competitive, and the losses they've had throughout the season are not indicative of that talent. But the one game I'm looking most forward to is on September 30th against Nebraska, because they're our top 2 in the conference without a question. Just had a great game at Memorial Stadium, and I'm just excited to see Indiana play the best of the best.
That was one of the more impressive sporting feats probably of really the entire season. Ari, what about you? What game are you most looking forward to?
Honestly, I would have to say the Michigan game. My dad is a huge fan, and I just love to see IU compete and do its best against Michigan.
I will agree. I do think Purdue, there's a chance to knock them off. They were able to take them to 5 sets at Wilkinson Hall last year. But that's going to wrap up this segment. Coming up after the break, though, we have a very special guest joining us in the discussion. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to the toss-up. I told you I had a very special guest here to join on the show, and none other than junior of the Indiana Volleyball team. It's Kenzie Daffinee. Kenzie, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm doing well.
Yeah, I guess we'll just jump right into things. So you played about 3 weeks of the season so far, 6-3. What have been your thoughts on the season so far?
It's been really exciting. I absolutely love the group. We have an amazing support staff around us, all the coaches, the managers, practice players. It's just been a really fun environment, and I'm super excited for the rest of the season.
Has there been like a mentality or team motto that you guys have rocked with this year, something special maybe?
We always say play hard and play fast. That's kind of something we focus on every single game, is playing really hard and playing faster than the other teams.
So first couple weeks of the season, you had that first series at home. You were able to take care of business there, and then you went to Long Beach, went to Tennessee, and then this upcoming weekend, go down to Miami. How has the travel been? And those are some fun locations to go to, but has there been any toll? That's across the country in a span of 3 weeks.
It's really exciting and it's a lot of fun. It is really challenging at times because we miss a lot of classes, but I think we all do really well staying on top of our schedules, and it's obviously really exciting to go play future Big Ten opponents out in California.
Oh yeah, just a couple weeks ago, it was Washington, UCLA were two of the opponents out in Long Beach. But I guess for yourself, what do you think the adjustments you've been able to make to be able to travel on these weekends?
I guess I just focus a lot on getting ahead, whether that's like in my personal life, so like doing laundry, like stuff at home just to keep myself on track, and then with school, just trying to stay on top of everything, and then volleyball, just trying to get extra reps as much as possible before we leave.
You talked about some of the positive chemistry that the team has had so far on the season. What have you noticed, and especially, you returned a ton of players from last season, you bring in some new faces with transfers and freshmen?
I think overall confidence on the team has taken a big step. We all have like a lot of belief in each other, and the freshman class coming in is amazing. They have all like meshed so well, and the transfers too. Like, it's actually kind of crazy how well they fit in. It's been really exciting.
Do you have a specific name that has possibly been flying under the radar that people should be looking out for come Big Ten play?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. We have an extremely talented team. Kaylee Ramelsberg has been doing so well. So I think look out for her this season.
I guess other different partnerships. You come in a lot to serve for this squad, and you work alongside someone who was an all Big Ten player with Cameron Hayworth. How has the competition between both of you as juniors been able to fuel one of the top categories of your team?
It's really fun having her and doing the same skill as me. We also have Greg Osnell, who topspin serves, so all three of us kind of help each other out with our tosses, our approach, and give each other good feedback.
What's been some of the competition looking like within practices leading up to some of these invitationals each week?
I'm not really sure how to answer that question.
Oh, that's all good. I guess, how do you feel like you've been able to help prep some of the people on the roster to get them ready for the games?
I guess me specifically, serving-wise, I try to serve as tough as possible for the passers to get them some solid reps.
So you're a junior, like I mentioned before, upperclassman. You're returning from last year and the year prior. How do you feel like you've been able to use your voice as a leader of this team rather than just from your play?
Me personally, I'm a little bit more of an introvert, and I'm a little bit quiet when it comes to those types of settings, but I've been trying to help with the underclassmen, just lead them off the court and have extra conversations with them, how are you doing, what's going on in your life, how can I help. I'm more of an off the court type leader than on the court, with my voice.
What's been some of the prep and expectations? You have one of the toughest conferences play of really any team in the country with being in the Big Ten, and there were some high expectations coming from last season. You're able to knock off Ohio State on the road. How does yourself and really the team prep for that with some of these non-conference invitationals?
I think it's just how we approach training every single day. We go in every single day wanting to work hard, and playing in the preseason really helps us against different teams. I don't really know how to answer that question either. Sorry.
I guess just to wrap it up, you head to Miami this weekend. What are you most looking forward to being in the 305?
Oh my gosh. I'm just excited to play some really tough teams again. It's going to be a pretty tough schedule. We play 2 games each day, so it'll be pretty tough, but I'm really excited.
Well, that's going to do it. That's going to wrap up episode 3 of the Toss-Up. Be sure to continue the discussion below, following at IUSTV Sports and at the Toss-Up on both Instagram and Twitter. With that, of course, there's one thing left to do. Toss it up. I guess I caught it this time, but we'll see you next week. So now that's